Very plainly, if you have not subscribed, please subscribe. You could be the one to get me so close or over the mark of 1 million subscribers, and I am humbled and thankful in advance. I talked earlier today about the fact that the constitutional crisis that keeps being mused about by the media and folks in my space, it is not some in the distance future thing that we're going to be facing. We are in the middle of our constitutional crisis right now. J.D. Vance the other day signaled on Twitter that the judges have no right. It's illegal for judges to tell the executive how to do their job, completely disregarding constitutional norms from 1803 with Marbury versus Madison, when Thomas Jefferson was president of the United States and James Madison was Secretary of State. This is how long judicial review has been the standard in our republic. And now in 2025, not 1803, 2025, the Republican Party that has banged on for generations about the Constitution, being originalists, being purists, being textualists, they're now just telling Donald Trump, ignore the courts, ignore federal judges and their rulings. And since J.D. Vance said it and Donald Trump is now doing this, you didn't hear about this before from Scott Jennings or Chris Sununu and any of these other fat-headed dipshits. But now, because J.D. Vance said it and they've signaled this is the new talking point, they're running with it. Last night on Abby Phillips' show, her name is Abby Phillip, but it's Abby Phillips, plural. I want to get her name right. And I want everybody to get her name right because it's a bummer when your name is similar to another name. I wouldn't know that. My last name's Dollemore. Very few people have this name. Very few in the States. It's more the British Isles. So Scott Jennings says it pretty plainly that this is what he says, if a district court judge, which is a federal judge, tries to usurp the authority of the chief executive of this country, they should absolutely defy it. That's not what is happening. Judges are acting within their constitutional authority as a check over the executive branch. It's constitutional separation of powers from a co-equal branch of government. It is the way that our founders, it's constantly talked about the genius of the Constitution and how the brilliant founding fathers that we lionize and mythologize, that they came to this perfect setup. And now Republicans just want to throw it out the window for the sake of Donald Trump to get through his unconstitutional destruction of the economy, of our government, and of our culture and society. It's just what it is. So Scott Jennings says that, taking the marching orders, and then they shift to appropriations, and Chris Sununu takes it a step further, completely trying to propagandize. And by the way, there's not enough pushback on these shows. Look, if you're a booker on Abby Phillips' show, you want somebody to push back in a cogent, aware manner relative to accuracy about what the Constitution is, I'm your guy, CNN. It's not going to happen. Trust me. I'm too much of a wild card, I think. But anyway, I'm going to play this Scott Jennings clip, but I want you to listen to them in tandem because it matters. And it really does drive home the point that we are in the midst of a constitutional crisis. It's not some distant on the horizon issue.
But let me just understand where you stand. If a district court judge rules in a way that the president dislikes, should the president listen or should the president defy?
If a district court judge tries to usurp the authority of the chief executive of this country, he should absolutely defy it. There's a difference between broad policy decisions and discrete disputes between parties. That's the difference. If I want a policy decided, I'll take it to the Supreme Court.
But what about checks and balances?
Well, Scott, you're all about
of a district court judge who elected them.
Look, dipshit, there is a process. There are processes involved. If a federal district judge does something that you don't agree with, you don't defy the judge. You don't ignore the court order from a federal court. What you do is appeal. We have an entire system, a network of appeals courts in this country. And you can take your case before the next judge and say, the previous judge said this, we argue this, and then that judge can make a ruling. That's how it works. You don't just ignore because you disagree. That's not constitutional. That's not originalist. That's not textualist. You know what that is? That's activism. That's civil disobedience. That's an act of protest to ignore a court order. It's contempt. Not just literal contempt of court, it's figurative contempt for our system, for the Constitution that you're constantly waving around like you have some loyalty to. This is just more proof that this document is but a prop that they pull out of their pocket. Well, what about the Constitution? Every moron on Twitter who says, I'm a constitutional originalist, I'm a purist of the Constitution. No, you're fucking not. Not if you're encouraging Donald Trump and the Heritage Foundation Project 2025 idiots to defy the orders of an elected, through the process of democracy, appointed judge, not elected, but they're appointed by people who are elected. And then there is advice and consent under Article 2, Section 2 of the same Constitution they don't want to listen to, that they were confirmed by the United States Senate, who are elected. It's all part of the system, Scott. You know this, though. You fat-headed freak. You smug. What's another? You coward. That hard C really was very, very tempting. So, man, I'm going to get myself in trouble. This administration is going to get me in trouble with you guys. Nobody wants to hear that. I mean, there's probably several of you that want to hear that, but I'm going to refrain. So let's move on. Maybe I'll get in trouble with this one. This is Chris Sununu, governor of New Hampshire, a guy who was backing the play of Nikki Haley, and then because he has no fealty to his actual ideologies that are previously stated, he's now in the tank for Donald Trump, defending the unconstitutional actions of Donald Trump, trying to propagandize and misrepresent how things work relative to the appropriation of money. Here, he's also talking about defying the Constitution, and then acts like he doesn't understand how the appropriations process works, even though he's the chief executive of the state of New Hampshire. Watch Chris Sununu.
They might be wanting to challenge it, but it is the law.
Right. The Impoundment Control Act says essentially the president cannot block money allocated by Congress. To the power of district court judges, and I understand your point, Scott. I understand the frustration people have when a district court judge blocks a broad mandate from the chief executive, the elected chief executive. Ultimately, you know, the big issues go up to the Supreme Court. But I guess I would ask both of you, what if a district court judge had blocked Barack Obama's DACA plan, the Dreamers plan, right? And he said, heck with you, I'm doing it anyway. Would you be okay with that? Or would you have a problem with that?
No,
would that be okay?
So again, that's where we're forgetting a key piece of the third branch of government. That's where Congress steps in.
Yes.
Right? You have to remember that a judge can't just say, well, I'm going to arbitrarily block something. They say, I'm blocking it because of this, and Congress can step in and be more specific and more refined if they want to.
Well, how does that work with Congress, who's appropriated funds for all of these other agencies?
So it can't work that
way. And now the
Congress
executive branch is stepping on Congress.
If Congress appropriates $20 million for a program, do you, as the chief executive, do I have to spend $20 million on that program?
Well, actually, this is
but
what
do
I'm
I?
trying to. This is why I
because
brought.
if I don't, what's the number?
I know that
Why
the
not do a bit
impoundment.
of an investigation into it first?
I know that the
instead of-
Impoundment Control Act thing sounds really wonky, but I guess the point I'm trying to make is that I understand the idea of testing laws. You want to see how far you can go, but the question that you are asking has been answered by the courts, okay? The reason that the Impoundment Control Act exists is to say that when Congress says we appropriate this money, it should be spent that way. That's their power. They have the power of the
Every
purse.
state in the country, when we pass a balanced budget, and I'll explain what a balanced budget is
Again,
to everyone in
it's a
Washington in a minute.
dispute, but I'm
we don't
saying
spend this
that
called a
hasn't
lapse.
been proven
There's
in the
hundreds of millions of dollars in
The answer is yes to the question. He asks, if Congress appropriates $20 million for a program, as chief executive, do I have to spend $20 million on that program? Yes, if that was signed into law by a previous president. Yes. See, it's a previous Congress appropriates money. See, that's how it works. When they talk about the Congress having the power of the purse, it's not just Congress, it's the House of Representatives. Any bill that originates funding, appropriations, the Ways and Means Committee, all of these things, the Budget Committee, you hear all these things. It starts in the House, then it goes to the Senate. If both houses sign the bill, then it goes to the desk of the President of the United States, who then signs it, and it becomes law. So yes, if it was signed passed by the House and the Senate and then on to the president and signed, yes, you do have to spend that money. However, if Congress appropriates the money in a spending bill and then you as the chief executive don't sign it, then no. But you know this, Chris Sununu. You see, both of these idiots know. They know. And I don't mean idiots because they don't know. I mean idiots because they think we don't know. They think we're too stupid to not understand the basic civics lesson that's at play here. He's acting as though just Congress does it. I don't have to do it just because Congress does it. You do because it's law. Just like Congress wrote a law about murder or bank robbery that was signed into law and then it became law. Well, just because Congress says doesn't mean I can't rob that bank. I mean, it's probably a sloppy metaphor, but what are we doing here? The Republican Party has placed us squarely in a constitutional crisis, giving Donald Trump, because he is too stupid to understand the lay of the land. If you were to ask Donald Trump to explain just Article 1, 2, and 3 of the he's not going to be able to do it. Donald Trump, there is not a single chance that Donald Trump has read even the first 10 amendments of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. There's not a chance. It's possible Donald Trump hasn't even read the ones he thinks are important, the First Amendment and the Second Amendment. He certainly hasn't read the Fifth Amendment, even though he's exerted his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination many hundreds of times in different court cases. Yeah. They want Donald Trump to have the power to defy the Constitution, to act as though he is a king, to ignore the rulings of courts who are co-equal branches of government who have constitutional checks of power over the other branches, just like those branches have checks over the judicial branch. Anyway, I really wanted to talk about this just to drive home the point that we are not in a distant constitutional crisis sometime in the future. It's happening right now in real time. We are living through that crisis. And it's time for activism. It is time for organization. It is time for Democrats to stop saying, what leverage do we have? We're just the House of Representatives. We're just in Congress. What can we do? I'm going to cover that. Coming up next. So if you want to see that, stick around for the next video. Anyway, if you're not subscribed, subscribe. You want to help support this work, click the join button, become a channel member for $2 a month, $1.99 a month. You can also go to patreon.com/IDoubtIt podcast. I love and appreciate you very much. Thanks for your concern, your passion, your organization and activism. Very important. Your collective action is more important than what I do here by far. So please get involved at the local level. If there's a protest, go to it. Call your representatives. Again, the Capitol Switchboard, 202-224-3121. For good measure, we'll do it again, 202-224-3121. Call your representative. Let them know your zip code. Let them know what you demand of them because they work for you. Anyway, I'll see you next time. Be genuine. Take care of one another.